I'm Robin. Standing outside the luxurious Grand Plaza Hotel, I took a deep breath, still feeling the weight of the stunned silence and the shattered glass from inside. As I watched my family huddled around a phone through the window, a mix of emotions welled up inside me. It was my mother's 68th birthday party, and what was supposed to be a simple family gathering turned into a life-altering revelation. Just moments ago, in the opulent private dining room of the hotel, the air had been thick with condescension and pity. My older sister, Rachel, with her sharp wit and a penchant for making cutting remarks, was in her element. She nudged our cousin, Lisa, and loudly whispered, "Look at her, still living in that old camper. Can you believe she's pushing 35 and acting like a penniless bohemian, claiming to be an artist?" Lisa, ever the one to follow Rachel's lead, replied with feigned sadness, "Remember when she was the class genius? We all thought she'd end up like us, in a stable, well-paying job. Instead, she threw it all away for some paint and canvas." My mother, Helen, sat at the head of the table, a tight-lipped smile on her face. She was a woman who valued tradition and stability above all else, haunted by the disappointment of my career choice. My father, George, a man of few words but strong opinions, sat silently, absorbing the conversation. Aunt Linda, known for her flamboyant personality and love for gossip, was talking about her son, Mark's, recent big promotion at a prestigious investment firm. "At least some of our kids know how to make something of themselves," she said, casting a pointed look my way. I had arrived late after a long meeting with art curators from the Louvre. As I made my way into the room, I could feel the looks of disdain and pity. Memories of years of being underestimated and misunderstood flooded back. Whenever I tried to share my art achievements, it was always overshadowed by someone else's success in their traditional careers. The dinner went on as expected, a symphony of expensive dishes and hurtful comments. Rachel boasted about her partnership at a high-end law firm, and Mark flaunted his new sports car. They were all so caught up in their version of success that they had no interest in my world. I listened, a half-smile on my face, my hand in my pocket, feeling the smoothness of the black envelope that held the invite to my biggest achievement yet. Then, Aunt Linda, looking at me with a false sense of concern, asked, "So, Robin, any good news? Found a real job yet?" I took a sip of water, my heart pounding. "Actually, yes. I have an announcement to make tonight." The table fell silent. Fear and curiosity were painted on their faces. Rachel's eyes narrowed suspiciously. I stood up, pulled out the envelope, and handed it to my mother. "Happy birthday, Mom." My mother opened it with trembling hands, expecting, no doubt, a trinket or a simple card. As she read, her face went as pale as a ghost. I don't understand," she stammered. Rachel snatched the invitation from her and began to read aloud, her voice rising in shock. "The Rockefeller Foundation cordially invites you to the exclusive unveiling of the Robin Harper Collection. Permanent acquisition, $55 million. Her wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor, just like their preconceived notions of me. Mark demanded, $55 million what? I said calmly, dollars. The Rockefeller Foundation has bought my entire Urban Wilderness series for their permanent collection. The unveiling is next week at their Manhattan gallery." The room was dead silent, except for the sound of a server cleaning up the broken glass. Aunt Linda stuttered, That's impossible. You live in a camper. You can't even dress properly." I corrected her firmly. "I choose to live in a fully restored 1972 Airstream. It allows me to travel and capture the beauty of different places. As for clothes, I'd rather invest in my art than in brand names." My father, his voice barely above a whisper, asked, "The Rockefeller Foundation? The real one?" I explained, "They've been following my work for 4 years. This acquisition includes 20 major artworks, along with my sketches. They're creating an entire wing for the collection." Mark quickly pulled out his phone and started Googling. His face went from disbelief to shock. "Holy cow, Robin Harper. There are so many articles. Rising star of modern art, the Banksy of the new era. Forbes, the Wall Street Journal. How did we not know? I simply replied, you never asked. Every time I tried to talk about my art, you'd change the subject to someone's new house or promotion. So I stopped trying. Rachel protested, but you're homeless. Living in that camper. I retorted, I'm not homeless. I own a penthouse in Tribeca that I use as my studio. I sleep in the camper when I'm on a creative quest. There's a big difference between choosing a simple life and being destitute. I pulled out my phone and showed them pictures of my real life. The sun-lit studio filled with large-scale canvases, the art openings in London and Dubai, and the private dinners with famous collectors. I said, the camper is where I go to find inspiration, to see the world through a different lens. My Urban Wilderness series is a result of conversations with people in forgotten neighborhoods, places you'd never visit. That's why it resonates, it shows the beauty in the overlooked. Lisa cleared her throat and asked, so, you've been successful all this time, and we didn't know? I replied, my work has been in galleries around the world for 6 years. I've been featured in every major art magazine. Last year, I was the youngest artist to have a showcase at the São Paulo Art Biennial. You could have found out any time. My mother, tears streaming down her face, asked, but why didn't you tell us? I remembered the pain of those unheard attempts. I tried, Mom. Remember 3 years ago when I said I had exciting news? You assumed I'd finally found a good boyfriend, and when I said it was about a museum acquisition, you walked away to talk to Rachel about her new client. That day, the British Museum bought 5 of my pieces, but Rachel's work seemed more important than your daughter's art. Mark kept repeating, $55 million. That's more than I'll ever make. I said, it's not about the money. You were so focused on the 9-to-5 jobs, houses, and cars that you missed my real success. Aunt Linda whispered, we thought you were struggling, wasting your talent. I countered, I was living my dream, creating art that touches people and ends up in the world's greatest museums. How is that wasting talent? Rachel, never one to give up the last word, said, well, it's just one sale. It doesn't mean. I interrupted gently, actually, I've been financially independent since I was 27. This is just the latest achievement. Remember the scribble you mocked? One of those scribbles is in the collection of a famous Hollywood director who paid more than your annual bonus for it. I gathered my things and said, I'm glad I could share this with you, but I have to go. The curator of the British Museum wants to discuss their upcoming modern art exhibition. They're interested in borrowing some pieces from my Rebirth series, the one I painted while living in that old camper in New Orleans, capturing the city's revival. My mother grabbed my hand. Robin, wait. I'm so sorry. We all are. We just didn't understand. I looked at her gently and said, you didn't try to understand. You saw a failure, not a woman living on her own terms, creating beauty in unexpected places. As I walked out, I turned back to say, oh, and Rachel, that old camper you mocked? It's part of an art installation at the Museum of Modern Decor. They're paying me $12,000 a month to display it. Even my vehicle is museum-worthy. Outside, I took a deep breath. The weight of years of heartache lifted off my shoulders. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Charles Rockefeller himself. Robin, the New York Times wants to do a story on the acquisition. Should we schedule an interview for Wednesday, after your British Museum meeting? I typed back a yes, then looked at the hotel's grand facade. Let them read about my success now. Let them see what they've missed. I had a life full of art and creativity awaiting me. My beautiful, iconic camper was parked nearby. I climbed in, running my hand over the dashboard. I'd restored myself. Tomorrow, I'd drive to the Rocky Mountains to start my next series. But tonight, I'd go back to my Tribeca penthouse, pour a glass of wine, and start sketching the new piece I'd thought of during the party. I'd call it Shattered Illusions, a symbol of how people see only what they expect until the truth breaks through. That's the power of art. We, as artists, see the beauty others overlook, create where others see nothing, and sometimes, if we're lucky, we get to watch the world's perception of us shatter like that champagne glass on the marble floor.